What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made these. Beautiful, delicious, smoky, tender, juicy, barky, amazing smoked beef cheeks on a pellet grill. Coming up. These are some beef cheeks. Pat them dry. And what I got here is some beef cheeks, or some beef cheek meat as it's sold here in the States. But if you have a local butcher, you may be able to find these pre-trimmed. I know Porter Road sells these pre-trimmed. If you live in the UK, these are pretty readily available pre-trimmed, which is very convenient. But for the rest of us, this is what we're gonna find, and it is pretty weird looking. A lot of fat, a lot of trimming to do, but it's luckily very easy. Simply enough, you need to identify where the actual beef cheek is. And on this pack, there's just one big beef cheek right here, and the rest of this stuff is just scraps that we need to remove. So basically anything dangling or hanging off. And this part may look like a beef cheek, but really it's just all fat and sinew, and there's only a really thin piece in there. So this we're gonna save for the barbacoa pile and focus on the main cheek over here. So again, you know, pretty strange looking, a lot of scraggly bits, just gonna zip those off. Scrap pile. Main beef cheek. This is a big one. It's gonna be good. So now we're just gonna go around and get this thing cleaned up, tackle this little bit of silver skin and extra fat on top. Could leave it on, I suppose, because beef cheeks are one of the more forgiving cuts in the barbecue world. And just like that, all trimmed up, rounded off the corners, looking good, looking clean. Backside, there is some silver skin back there, but that will all in fact break down during the low and slow cook today. And now we'll repeat with this other chunk. But there is usually only one or two per pack, so if you're gonna do this, you might wanna make sure you buy enough. I also really wish the butchers would pay more attention, because this is just butterflied out, so all this meat on this side could be left on here, but maybe it's part of getting it off the cow that they have to butterfly it, but super annoying. But follow that butterfly cut to just separate these two chunks. And we repeat. And just like that, we got two beef cheeks out of the big pile, but luckily in my freezer, I had some more pre-trimmed beef cheeks. Pretty sure these are from Porter Road, but these are our main beef cheeks we're gonna be cooking today, and then you got all this scrap over here, which seems pretty wasteful. I suppose we could get another cheek out of this one. We might throw that one in the mix as well. But for the rest of this stuff, we're gonna set aside and save for making barbacoa. And I could make a video on barbacoa if you wanna see that, and I've done that in the past if you wanna look that up. But essentially we're gonna do the exact same thing, where we smoke this, confit it, and then we're gonna end up with a lot of shredded beef cheek at the end of the day, which is one of my favorite things to eat. Great for tacos or sandwiches. But we just won't get that sliceable, nice texture that we're gonna get from these bad boys. Look at the marbling on that one. Very nice. So alas, none of this will go to waste. But as for our actual beef cheeks, we're gonna get these things seasoned up. And per usual for a beef cut on the old barbecue pit, I'm going on with some good old-fashioned SPG. And we're gonna go on nice and heavy. A lot of black pepper should make for a great bark. And season these things perfectly. Basically just gonna toss these with rub, making sure we get all sides. Get them all tossed around. And those are looking pretty much perfect to me. So now all we gotta do is fire up the pit. Back to the old Yoder here. I cleaned it up yesterday, so it's looking a little bit less dusty, which is nice. And I also installed a little thermometer on here. And that's mostly because I'm getting pretty sick of looking at my phone to know what temperature this thing is at. With all my other pits, I'm used to just glancing over and seeing a dial, so I think this is just gonna make me a little more comfortable, but probably not necessary, and I probably just voided the warranty by doing that. But I want the tiny thermometer, the old grill thermometer, as opposed to, you know, the 3-inch, and that's just because it's got a really short stem on it. And I didn't want the probe sticking too far in, because, you know, if it's sticking this far in, it's probably gonna hit whatever meat I'm cooking, because I'm usually cooking right about there anyway. But we're just gonna get this bad boy fired up, firing it up at 350 degrees, just to get it started. As for pellets, I still got these Smokin pecan shell pellets in there, which should be great. And I used those last time for the turkey breast video, and they were great, but I do want to taste them on some beef, so this should work out really well today. And I think I'm gonna get the smoke tube going as well. And on the pit we go. No real rhyme or reason for which direction is facing up on a beef cheek, which is convenient. I'm gonna go in my typical spot, kind of center upper rack here. And the pit is in fact still firing up. And I'm throwing them on just to get a little extra smoke while this thing does heat up. And we should get a lot of smoke on these, which is a good thing, because they're not gonna be on the pit for all that long. You know, on the offset, a beef cheek cook is about 4 hours. So on the pellet grill, I'm thinking it's probably gonna be about 3. But I set the temp to 200 degrees, because I've learned that these pits tend to cook a little bit hotter than what you set them at. And with the fans in there, there's a lot of convection, which also tends to make things cook quicker. So we wanna get as much smoke on these as possible in the short amount of time they're on the pit, which is why I'm using the Smokin pecan pellets, because they produce a lot of smoke. We've got a smoke tube in there to get even more smoky flavor on these bad boys. And we're cooking at a low temperature, so they don't cook too quickly and and absorb a lot of that flavor. And you may have noticed I moved the smoke tube to the other side of the pit, which seems like a weird idea because it's really close to the smokestack. But a lot of people in the last video were saying that if it's on the other side, it's right next to that ambient internal probe, which controls the whole pit. And if there's a flame right below it, it may mess with your temps a little bit. And it would appear that it's working because this thing is pumping out a bunch of smoke. Smells good. We are about 2 hours into this cook, and I gotta say, this is the most smoke I've ever seen coming out of this thing, so we should be on track for some good flavor. According to my new thermometer here, we've been rocking between 225 and 250 the whole time. And the nice part is now I can see the thermometer from the kitchen when I'm doing dishes in there, which is nice, good peace of mind. I also got a pan in here full of some beef fat that's melting down. Rendered tallow, that is, not actual beef fat. And if that gets a little extra smoky flavor on it, I'm not mad about it. These guys are looking good, pretty barky. Probably could pull them off right now, but I'm gonna let them go probably for another hour. And per usual, it's been a very stress-free, easy cook. This pellet grill is starting to grow on me for sure. And it's been a long time since I made beef cheeks, you know? I've done them on the Chud box, I've done them on the offset, and I think they are a good contender for the pellet grill because I'm usually only making 4 or 5 at a time, so firing up this giant offset seems a little bit overkill, and it's a pretty quick smoke, and we can confit on there. But for now, we're gonna just keep on the same trajectory, not gonna bump the temps or anything like that because everything seems to be going according to plan. We'll check back in probably an hour or so. We are at hour 3 on this cook. And not much has changed. Except I was reading in the comments of one of my other pellet grill videos and someone said if you push the button on the yoder during a cook, it'll change how much the pit swings up and down from 20 degrees to 5 degrees. And sure enough, I pressed it and yeah, it did that. And I don't know why that's even an option or why anyone would ever want this pit to swing by 20 degrees in either direction. But ever since I pushed it, it's been holding at a solid 250 on the top thermometer, as opposed to the first few hours when it was down at 225 at some point, up to 250, 260 at some point. So that's a cool feature. And again, I don't know why you'd ever want to change that from 5 degrees to 20 degrees. I tried looking it up, but I honestly don't know what to type. But I do worry that maybe it's better for the pit itself to be on a 20-degree temp swing, and it definitely seems to be making more noise now that it's on that 5. But temps are more consistent, so that's great. I really probably should have read the user manual on this pit, but that's why I got you folks. So I do appreciate all the comments. But checking back in on these beef cheeks, they are looking really good, nice and barky. All that pepper has set up on there. I just temped one of these. They're rocking about 185 internal temp, but they are still hard as a rock, like a beef cheek usually is at this point. So to tenderize them in true beef cheek fashion, into the beef fat we go. Beautiful. At this point, we're gonna keep that pit at 200 degrees, and we're just gonna cook these cheeks in that fat until they are just probing impossibly tender. And you got several options at this stage for beef cheeks. A slow cooker works really well. You could do them in a big vat of fat like I'm doing. A braise would also be a great option like we did in the oxtail video. That would work out really well. In fact, a Jamaican beef cheek video is definitely coming up. But in true Leroy and Lewis fashion, I'm gonna confit these in some beef fat for probably another 2-3 hours, maybe 4, not really sure. But that's the beauty of these things is once they're probing nice and tender, they'll be done. So I'm gonna pop a lid on that and just let it keep smoking. Although to be completely transparent, I'm gonna put it in my oven because I don't want to waste all the pellets, but you could just leave it on the pit. But they're covered up and soaking in beef fat, so the smoke's not really gonna do anything. So into my oven, probably set at 200 degrees, these will go for a couple hours. And after a surprisingly long confit, out these beef cheeks finally come. Now, typically with beef cheeks, I usually clock about 4 and 4, right? 4 hours of smoke, followed by 4 hours in the tallow, but this took forever for some reason. We are now at hour 10, which means these were in the oven for 7 hours, which is pretty wild. I've never really experienced that before, and I don't really know what to chalk it up to. I was thinking maybe they cooked a little too hot and fast. They got super tight, super quick, and just did 0 breakdown on the smoker. But again, they're on there for 3 hours, so I have no idea. Maybe it's just the cut of cheeks I'm using. But nevertheless, out they come because they're feeling nice and tender, finally. Got myself a wire rag and some paper towels for easy cleanup because we need to pull these things out to drain because they are covered in beef fat, but they're looking really nice. Good bark on there. Some of these look like they got a little washed out, but for the most part, that's a good looking glistening beef cheek. You can just feel how tender it is. Wants to fall apart, but stays together. Yeah, lost a little bit of bark on that one, but should be just fine. Oh man, there's nothing like the smell of beef cheeks coming out of the hot tallow. Smells nice and smoky. That's a good thing. And I'm also really glad that I did put these in the oven because that would have eaten a lot of pellets over the last 7 hours. Any more in there? Nope. And as far as all this extra beef fat, you can reuse it a couple times. I actually already did use this once for another barbacoa or beef cheek confit. And I'd say probably 3 times max on using your fat. This is looking pretty gnarly. A lot of black pepper and a lot of meat juices in there. So I'm probably gonna discard this after this run, but you could always strain it and try to to use it again. And not sponsored, but this stuff is awesome. You can add this to hot oil and it'll all coagulate and congeal into like almost a plastic. It's kind of weird. But then you can simply just throw it away. I don't know if it's a great idea for this amount of fat, but for bacon grease or something like that, this stuff comes in real handy. I'll drop a link in the description box for it, but it does make fat disposal a lot easier. So at this point, these are fully cooked, nice and tender, nice and smoky. And you could pop these back on the pit at this point if you wanted to get more of a crispy bark. I do like to do that from time to time. But to be completely honest, I just really don't want to fire up that pit again because it makes a lot of noise and it's already 11:30 at night right now. So I'm just gonna let these cool down until they're eating and slicing temperature. And then we'll dive on in. And due to a slightly brisk night out here, these cool down very quickly. So let's go ahead and slice on in. But one more close up of how these are looking. Nice and squishy, nice and fatty, nice and barky. So now we slice in. Oh yeah, that's looking nice and tender. Beautiful smoke ring on that too. That's crazy. Very sticky stuff. But that is what a beef cheek should look like. Nice and gelatinous. Everything is rendered. Super tender, super juicy. Gotta love that. All that collagen sticks to the knife though. Pretty messy stuff. Beautiful cook on that. And there they are in all their glory, folks. Some beautiful, smoky, barky, tender, juicy, very tasting looking pellet grill beef cheeks. Let's dive in. Gotta say, I'm pretty excited about this one. It's been a minute since I had a good juicy beef cheek, but you know, when you work on a food truck and you cook these every day for like 5 years, you're gonna eat a lot of these things. So I think I needed a little break, but that is a classic looking, beautiful render on that. Is it tender? Yup. No. Yep. Oh, that is so tender. Still rich, but look at that. This is a little perfect morsel of barbecue right there. Definitely got smoke flavor on there. Hell of a smoke ring too. That is one of the best bites in barbecue right there. I would call that a successful cook, folks. Ooh, so pretty looking. Smoke flavor is definitely there too. It is a little muted, but it was only on the pit for like 3 hours, and then it was in confit for a while, so that smoke flavor is gonna be a little bit more mellowed out, but all that considered, still getting some good smoke flavor on these. So those smoking pecan shell pellets, those are pretty good. Might have to get another box of those, because these are super tasty. Oh, that was even more tender than the first bite. It's like a tiny little brisket. Look at that thing. It's like all burn end. So it's a giant burn end is really what a beef cheek is. And I know it's a beef cheek sin to do what I'm about to do, but as a content creator, I feel like I have to show you how truly tender these are. And also it'll make Evan Leroy squirm somewhere. So, oh yeah, oh yeah. Look at that. That's how tender these are, which is kind of the coolest part about beef cheeks is that they are that fall apart tender. That's more tender than a pork butt gets, but they still hold up under a slice, you know what I mean? So you kind of got two options. You could either go barbacoa or the sliced route. Gotta love it. Now, somewhere on YouTube, there's a video of me and Guga making these. I think we did them sous vide, which is a great option, by the way. But then we took a whole one of these and just put it on a burger bun and made a sandwich out of it. That was a ridiculous sandwich, but I think I'm gonna stick to these slices because that is just such a good bite of barbecue. I like it. Things I would do differently if I was going to cook these bad boys on the pellet grill again. First, I would probably lower the temps down to 180, which I feel like I'm saying in all of these videos, but not a big critique. I just think it could use a little more time on the pit, a little more smoke flavor, and hopefully take less time in the confit. But really, at the end of the day, these results are speaking for themselves, so don't really need to change much of anything. And secondly, if they are feeling super tight, I would probably just bump the temps on the confit. I did end up bumping the temps up to 250 for the last hour of this cook, just to speed things along, and that had no ramifications. Look at the shape of that one. Or you could do the overnight at 200. I've done that plenty of times. Crock pot on low, full of tallow or broth works really well. Sous vide method works really well, but honestly, these are pretty damn tasty. But with this last bite of beef cheek, I think it's time for the official taste test. All right, y'all, and that is it. That is how to make some absolutely fantastic smoky barbecue beef cheeks on the pellet grill. I highly recommend giving this one a try. You know, if you're a backyard pit master and you haven't made yourself some beef cheeks yet, you are definitely missing out. It's a super easy cook, hands-free, pretty forgiving, and at the end you get that quintessential bite of some Texas-style barbecue where it's beefy, it's smoky, it's tender. It's similar to brisket or short ribs, but you know, if you're a family of 2 or 3, sometimes cooking a whole brisket is just way too much meat, and this is a great alternative that honestly I think I like better than brisket. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you do give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Patreon members. Thank you for supporting Team Chud and allowing me to keep making all these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace.